Good morning, everyone. It's April 27th, 2019. I'm Eric. Okay, so as you can see, I'm here at Wikipedia, of all places. However, it does give a reasonable definition of what the Strauss-Howe generational theory is, or what it is. Please do note that a major contributor to this article appears to have a close connection with its subject. Basically, when you get these warnings from Wikipedia, they do not like what is said within the content. The Strauss and Howe generational theory, also known as the fourth turning theory, or just the fourth turning, was created by authors William Strauss and Neil Howe. Describes a theorized recurring generation cycle in American history. And according to this theory, we are long overdue for civil conflict. According to the theory, historical events are associated with reoccurring generational personas or archetypes. Each generational persona unleashes a new era called a turning, in which a new social, political, and economic climate exists. Turnings tend to last around 20 to 22 years. They are part of a larger cyclical saeculum, a long human life, which usually spans between 80 and 90 years, although some have lasted longer. The theory states that after every saeculum, a crisis reoccurs in American history, which is followed by a recovery or a high. During this recovery, institutions, values are strong. Ultimately, succeeding generational archetypes attack and weaken institutions in the name of autonomy and individualism, which ultimately creates a turbulent political environment that ripens conditions for another crisis. And let me see if the author's name is here, just to make sure I give due credit. If I see it, I will mention it, and I do apologize, I did not look at it first. Strauss and Howe laid the groundwork for their theory in their 1991 book, Generations, which discusses the history of the United States as a series of generational biographies going back to 1584. In their 1997 book, The Fourth Turning, the authors expanded the theory to focus on a fourfold cycle of generational types and reoccurring mood eras in American history. Okay. They have since expanded on the concept in a variety of publications. It was developed to describe the history of the United States, including the 13 colonies and their British antecedents. And this is where the most detailed research has been done. However, the authors have also examined generational trends elsewhere in the world and describe similar cycles in several developed countries. In a 2009 article published in the Chronicles of Higher Education, Eric Hoover called the authors pioneers in a burgeoning industry of consultants, speakers, and researchers focused on generations. Academic responses, or response to, the theory has been mixed. Some applauding Strauss and Howe for their bold and imaginative thesis, and others criticizing the theory. And no matter what theory you come up with, there's always going to be somebody out there who criticizes it, whether you're a PhD level person or just an asshole like me. According to the New York Times, many academic historians dismiss the work of Strauss and Howe as about as scientific as astrology or as Nostradamus texts. So, that's just a little nutshell there. According to Strauss and Howe generational theory, or the fourth turning, we are supposed to experience civil upheaval every 80 years or so. And it's been, I guess you can say, the civil rights movement was a form of civil upheaval. And now, here we are, how many years later, and we have yet another cycle of civil upheaval, right? And it's not only coming from one side. This civil upheaval is coming from people who lie on both the right and the left. And we can see conditions beginning to favor a rather catastrophic end to this most recent generational cycle. I got the topic from this here, just to give credit where credit is due. Sometimes I struggle for topics and hijack them, I guess. So I'm going to go ahead, since they were the people I got the idea from, the topic idea, I will go ahead and hit this one and only paragraph, because it's a video below. And this is on activistpost.com and by Tim Pool. Journalist Tim Pool uncovers a cyclical theory that indicates the United States is overdue for a conflict. Pool explains the fourth turning, or the crisis stage of the cycle in the Strauss-Howe theory, seems to happen every 80 years. This turning will likely a culture war that escalates to a full-blown crisis. And this culture war isn't only about the donkey and the elephant. It's about many, many decades of pent-up hatred toward a certain demographic. We do not need to get into which demographic it is. I think it is rather obvious. And then, of course, you have the extremities of these two ideologies. You see, you have a right wing and a left wing, but then you have the center, which is the body, right? The center is the key. Let's see here. And economic conditions, of course, play into this cycle. Nearly 102 million Americans do not have a job right now. Worse than at any point during the last recession, which is why I continue to say that that last recession did not really end. It's been long, drawn out, and any talk of recovery has been fabricated. Economic conditions are one of the things that leads to civil conflict, and we can see our own economy unraveling right before our very eyes. The retail apocalypse has accelerated since my last video about it. So this comes from Michael Schneider from the Economic Collapse blog. Wouldn't it be horrible if the number of Americans without a job was higher today than it was during the Great Recession of 2008 and 2009? Well, it's actually true. As you will see below, nearly 102 million Americans do not have a job right now. And at no point during the last recession did that number ever surpass the 100 million mark. Of course, the U.S. population has grown a bit over the last decade. But as you will see below, the percentage of the population that is engaged in the labor force is only slightly above the depressingly low levels from the last recession. Sadly, the truth is that the rosy employment statistics that you're getting from the mainstream media are manufactured using smoke and mirrors, and by the time you are done reading this article, you will understand what is really going on. Again, this whole economic thing plays into these cycles of upheaval. And unfortunately, the thing about these cycles is it's usually the population victimizing each other on top of the despotism demonstrated by the government itself. Before we dig into the long-term trends, let's talk about what we just learned. According to CNBC, initial claims for unemployment benefits just rose by the most that we have seen in 19 months. Initial claims for state unemployment benefits jumped 37,000 to a seasonally adjusted 230,000 for the week ended April 20th, the Labor Department said on Thursday. The increase was the largest since September 2017. Also, considering all of the other troubling economic signs that we have been witnessing lately, this makes perfect sense. In addition, we need to remember that over the last decade, lawmakers across the country have made it more difficult to apply for unemployment benefits and have reduced the amount of time that unemployed workers can receive them. In reality, the unemployment situation in this nation is far worse than the mainstream media is telling you, not to mention our president. And I don't know if I will see that in Michael Schneider's article, as he is a Trump supporter. I'm neutral. When a working-age American does not have a job, the federal number crunchers put them into one of two different categories. Either they are categorized as unemployed, or they are categorized as not in the labor force. That in itself is manipulation. Basically, what we're getting at here is we have all of the conditions, and these conditions are worsening. We have all the conditions for domestic conflict. We're over here at RT. Black Lives Deadlock. I'm not going to play the video, just hit the little paragraph synopsis here. Black America has been shaped by racism. But 50 years after the end of segregation, is racism still holding African Americans back, or is integration an irreversible process? White supremacists from the Ku Klux Klan, a radio host, and a Black Lives Matter activist question whether black and white people really want to live side by side. And this isn't only about black people, it's also about other demographics who have deeply rooted hatred for Caucasians. Deeply rooted. Going back, hundreds and hundreds of years, if not more. Okay, I covered that one. And then when you add stuff like this to the mix, while bee population collapses by 90% in New England, a study warns. What you have is a future of food shortage, a future of people fighting just to get resources they need to survive. Am I building a decent case for you here? I think so. And then we come over here. America's forced financial flight, fleeing unaffordable and dysfunctional cities. And this is further evidence of the breakdown in our civilization, and therefore the way we treat each other and our division. All of this stuff is, okay, back a couple years ago, I watched this show called 100. It's a show about people who had to go live in space because of a nuclear war. They send a probe or something like that down to Earth to see if it's habitable because they're running out of air on the space station. Well, later on in the series, there's this tribe that survived on Earth, and they had a punishment for traitors. It's called the death of 1,000 cuts. And this is what's going on. We're suffering a death of 1,000 cuts. Or maybe a better way to put it is 1,000 cuts is leading to our civil conflict. We have people feeding this hatred on every side. And if you're feeding something, what's going to happen to it? It's going to get bigger and meaner. So, there may be something to the Strauss Howe generational theory, even though Wikipedia clearly does not like what it says. I bet you guys didn't know, I'm all into social psychology. I'm all into group psychology. I mean, I'm really into it. And I can see with fucking crystal clear clarity what is unfolding. And I can tell you right now, it's going to get very unpleasant with the bee population collapsing, with the farmlands destroyed, there's going to be less and less resources, with the hatred towards a certain demographic growing with each and every passing day due to the feeding of the monster. This can only lead to one thing, and it's not good. Heed my warning. Heed it. Anyway, I thought I would talk to you all about this. I hope you have a good day. Until next time, kill the state, live free.